Yes, excuse me. Hi guys, Dexter here. First off, I want to thank Teddy Bobby 22 for sending me this. I'd never heard of Mr. Galloway. Um, I watch a lot of BBC News, but I just had never come across this fella. But his explanation to the caller was brilliant. Was absolutely brilliant. And I really wish this sort of dialogue, this discourse, could take place on a large scale. You don't really see it, certainly in the American media, mainstream media. Um, as a Canadian, it strikes me as a little odd. I recall, for instance, in the mid 80s, 1984, I was in grade 10, I guess I would have been, and we were at a class trip. I went to high school a couple hours north of Toronto, and we went on a class trip to Toronto to check out ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum, and I think it was a science center, and things like that. And while we were there, the class, there was a protest happening. And I wasn't really a political kid when I was in high school. I was mostly about playing hockey and sports and swimming and chicks at the wharf, and basically good old boy kind of high school existence. And there was a huge protest that was rolling along through Toronto, and I'd seen bits in the paper from the Toronto Star that my father read every day. With regards to cruise air missile testing. And I didn't really think much of it, but you see the protesters were there, and of course they got the pamphlets and the signs and so forth. And what it basically was about was the American government wanted to test cruise air missiles over Canadian soil. They didn't want to do it over American soil because, hey, there could be some fallout, things can fall and so forth. But it seemed a-okay to test them over Canada. Now, mind you, I'm not suggesting that they were going to be testing them over Vancouver, or testing them over Montreal or Toronto or something. They were going to be up in the northern country, but hell, U.S. and northern country as well. But there seemed to be a bit of a disconnect that to destroy our ecology is, hey, it's not, that's okay. And we get that a lot. The Star Wars plan, the missile air defense, was set up in a way that during the Cold War, if the buttons were pushed and everybody's firing from everybody, the incoming missiles would be intercepted, coming from Russia primarily, and the fallout would land over Canada. I'm a believer that in terms of nuclear weapons, certainly, either we all should have them or nobody should have them. The Cold War was a good thing. Having a balance of power is a good thing. The knowledge and reality of knowing that the Russians had the power to equal power to the Americans kept the Americans from really nation building to a certain extent, right? So that's a good thing. The caller from Suffolk really, I don't know, throws me a little bit. It seems to me that it's always been this way. I guess it's one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And while certainly in the Commonwealth, the England has its own cross to bear in terms of the atrocities going back through the sands of time that it's committed. That's a matter for historical record. There was nothing like having London bombed, having the war brought to their doorstep to realize things have to change. And it saddens me greatly that America, the United States of America, seems to have this, we're the greatest country in the world, we're, everything that everybody aspires to be, sort of thing. And because we're so goddamn great, then under the auspices of spreading freedom and democracy, we're going to light up everybody like a friggin' Christmas tree. Because if they're not practicing our version of capitalist democracy, where multinationals and corporations basically run the show in conjunction with government, and if they don't do that, if they don't give up their natural resources to our almighty buck, which is ironic, of course, because America doesn't have any money. They borrow their money from communist China. They deal with the World Bank, the Federal Reserve. So, I mean, it's so much gobbledygook, all kind of wrapped up together. I can tell you now as a Canadian that when 9/11 happened and it was brought to the attention that Bin Laden was the best viable lead, that was the intel right off the bat, and he was being housed in Afghanistan. Canadians went. The world responded in kind. But this notion that there was this great intelligence about weapons of mass destruction and all this horseshit for Iraq is complete and utter hindsight is 2020 revisionist history. There wasn't great intel. The intel was cherry-picked remarkably, and that's known now, but it was known then. Why do you suppose Canada didn't sign up and go to Iraq? Could it possibly be that on Canadian television we were made aware of Ray McGovern and Richard Clark and Scott Ritter and other intelligent officers who said, "Look, we were made to the special plans folks in the Pentagon were made to tailor all evidence, no matter how far back it went. Doesn't matter that they just kept repeating over and over. How many times have you heard, well, that's Saddam, he gassed the Kurds, 100,000 people. Did that happen? Sure it happened. Where'd the chemical weapons come from? United States of America. Some from France, some from England perhaps, and some even probably from Canada, because Canada's got has a cross to bear in that. We supplied armaments in Vietnam. We allowed Monsanto to test Agent Orange, the defoliant agent at Gagetown. Okay, so I mean, I'm not looking at it like America is the big bad wolf and Canada is like squeaky clean. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we cannot forget our history, folks. In 1953, James, what happened to Mossadegh? Hey, what was his crime? His crime was he wanted to nationalize his natural resources and limit private foreign investment. And what did the Western world do? Oh, can't have that. No. We overthrew Mossadegh and we installed the Shah of Iran. Way to go, Mr. Galloway. I salute you and thank you. Cheers.